Hey!
We don't kill the living. Shut up.
Hey, what is going on, guys? Back again with another Walking Dead review. This is going to be for Season 8, Episode 4, entitled Some Guy. Alright, guys. Episode starts out with a flashback to the kingdom as they prepare for the upcoming war with the Saviors. Ezekiel dons his king attire before meeting with the townsfolk. His soldiers say their farewells to their families before heading off into battle. Ezekiel addresses the people, acknowledging their hardships that his troops will face on the path to victory and his certainty of their eventual triumph. He gathers the community together in a joyous embrace. The scene cuts to the aftermath of the 50 caliber assault. Bodies lay in pieces on the ground. The entire kingdom army had been slaughtered. Ezekiel's hand burst out from underneath the pile of bodies that had shielded him from the attack. Climbing out, a distressed Ezekiel observes his former soldiers on the ground, ripped apart by the hail of bullets. He stops over Daniel's body, letting out a scream of despair before he notices that some of the fallen kingdomers have begun to reanimate, including Daniel. Suffering from a severe leg injury and finding that most of his dead men's weapons are low on ammo, he can only crawl away before he is saved by Alvaro, who managed to survive the onslaught. He helps him to his feet. In the outpost, the Saviors pack the 50 caliber machine guns back into their cases for use at the sanctuary. Carol approaches from the hallway, hiding when she hears another Savior calling out from behind, rushing the other Saviors into working faster. As they all gather into the joining room, they are all suddenly gunned down. Carol clambers down from within the ceiling panels as she puts down the remaining Saviors. She is spotted by another group, prompting her to hastily escape. The men decide to ignore her, prioritizing the weapons transportation. As Alvaro helps Ezekiel to walk, he is suddenly ambushed and shot through the chest by another Savior, who captures Ezekiel and forces him in another direction towards the outpost. Taking his sword, Gunther, the Savior, reveals his plan to escort Ezekiel to the sanctuary. Ezekiel reminds him that the fences have been destroyed and that the compound is overrun. Gunther, however, figures that Ezekiel could be his way through the problem by forcing him to assist with the transportation of the machine guns to the compound. As they walk, they are being tailed by a large herd of walkers. Carol manages to catch up with the second group of Saviors as they begin loading the heavy weapons into a truck. Gunther pushes Ezekiel too hard, causing him to collapse from his injured leg. Ezekiel refuses to let Gunther or the Saviors use him against his people, but Gunther insults the kingdomers before standing on Ezekiel's leg and forcing him back to his feet. On the way forward, Gunther denounces Ezekiel's title and the kingdom's way of life, exclaiming that under his kingly appearance and mannerism is just some meaningless con man in a costume. Carol attempts to ambush the Savior crew but is fired upon by two of the men, forcing her to take cover. Gunther and Ezekiel make it to the outer fence of the outpost. As Gunther looks for a way in, Ezekiel attempts to retrieve his sword, but is incapacitated and has the weapon taken away from him again. Gunther marks Ezekiel's face with 3 lines of blood and mocks him before taking him further along the fence. Carol is cornered by the Saviors, who are still peppering her hiding place with bullets. Gunther and Ezekiel reach the main gate, where Gunther discovers to his dismay that the gate is padlocked. Ezekiel notes that the herd is bearing down on them and asks for his sword back, suggesting they fight them together. Gunther instead rips off his overcoat, intending to use it to safely climb over the razor wire fence and into the outpost. Ezekiel protests, reminding him of his injured leg, but Gunther kicks him to the ground, declaring that while Negan intended to have the 3 militia leaders chained to the sanctuary fences, he decides to take matters in his own hands with Ezekiel by beheading him and setting his head on a pike. As he gloats and brings Ezekiel's sword up, we hear a scream, and he is completely cut in half by one swing of Jerry's axe. As Carol hides from the gunfire, she looks up and notices a button that activates a nearby gate. She slowly disarms herself, putting on an act, offers to inform the Saviors of the whereabouts of her comrades. Jerry, battered from the war, helps Ezekiel to his feet, props him up against the fence. He puts down 2 former kingdomers with Ezekiel's sword before returning to him with Your Majesty. Ezekiel, discouraged by the Gunther's taunt and insults, denounces this, but Jerry insists that he continue bestowing that title on him. He takes his axe and begins swinging at the chain on the gate. Deciding to take up Carol's offer, Yago, the leader of the crew, asks where her people are. Carol stalls long enough to disarm one of the saviors who approaches her and demands they lower the weapons. Joey pleads for Yago to comply, but he is ignored and is promptly shot in an attempt to kill Carol. Carol, in turn, has managed to open Gate 4, allowing a group of walkers to stumble in. Jerry continues to swing at the chain, but he finds it's not breaking. In his last attempt to breach it, he slips the axe through the chain and tries to wrench it off, but breaks the axe head off in the process. The men find that the herd is closing in on them. With no time to break the gate open, both men decide to fight off the herd. Carol rearms herself and takes the fence gate key from Joseph's body. 2 of the saviors are killed by those group of walkers, diverting Yago and the other saviors' attention away from Carol. Ezekiel and Jerry begin to fight back against the oncoming herd. Jerry takes a moment to thank Ezekiel for being such a cool dude before continuing on the slaughter. After the 2 remaining saviors clear out most of the walkers, they hide from Carol's gunfire. She declares both parties need to end their conflict there and now, and affirms that the 50 caliber guns aren't getting to their destination. She moves in to finish them off, but finds Ezekiel and Jerry in danger. Flashing back to the kingdom, during the preparations of war, Carol asks if Ezekiel has fought before, to which he confirms, adding that he is ready to fight in the upcoming battle and become a warrior. He recounts his former career as a zookeeper, describing his saving of Shiva as a seconds-long decision of whether or not to become the person who would take the risk to better those in need. He further recounts Benjamin's words to him several years afterwards, "If you're asked to be a hero, be the hero." He asks Carol if becoming the stronger person and she is now was a part of her nature, or was it by choice, like Ezekiel's. She affirms the latter. In the present, Ezekiel and Jerry continue to fight the herd, but Ezekiel begins to fatigue. Carol decides to assist them, mowing down half the herd with Joseph's rifle, as the 2 saviors drive away with the machine guns. As Carol opens the gate, Ezekiel inquires about the heavy weapons. Carol responds that there's nothing that can be done about them at the moment. Ezekiel is dismayed at this revelation and opts to warn Rick, but Carol, hearing a motorcycle and a truck in the distance, assures him that the guns won't make it to the compound. The 2 saviors make a The 2 saviors make a hasty getaway with the guns in tow, with Rick and Daryl in hot pursuit. One of the saviors mans out of the guns and begins firing at the 2, managing to cause Daryl to swerve off the road. Rick stays on their trail. Yago evades walkers on the road, throwing off the other savior's aim and causing him to stumble. As he regains his position, he continues to shoot at the other truck. Rick veers to the side, allowing Daryl, who caught up with the pursuit, to open fire on the savior, hitting him several times and apparently killing him. Rick manages to catch up to Yago's truck and jumps on board, stabbing him in the gut and pushing him out of the vehicle before crashing it on the side of the road. Daryl arrives at the scene to meet up with Rick as both contemplate the condition of the 50 caliber machine guns. They approach the truck to check on the remaining savior. Carol and Ezekiel and Jerry fight their way through more walkers. Ezekiel begins to falter and begs that the others leave him, knowing he'll slow them down with his injury, but they refuse. They eventually reach a polluted creek bed where more walkers are roaming. They manage to push through, but Ezekiel turns back, fighting off the approaching walkers and yelling for the others to leave him. Jerry refuses to leave, feeling it is his duty to protect his king, but Ezekiel rejects the title, iterating that he is just some guy. Suddenly, Shiva jumps into the fray, mauling walkers and violently throwing several of them aside. As Ezekiel watches helplessly, Shiva is set upon and ripped apart by the small herd, staining the waters red but allowing ample time for the 3 soldiers to escape. Ezekiel breaks down and totally devastated in losing his beloved friend and companion. The 3 make it back to the kingdom, battered, bruised, and broken. The townspeople gather to find that Ezekiel, Carol, and Jerry are the only survivors of the fight. Broken-spirited, Ezekiel is at a loss for words and is unable to address the mourning crowd, limps off to his quarters as the episode comes to an end. Alright guys, that was a quick rundown review of Season 8, Episode 4, Untitled Some Guy. Thanks for checking this out as always. Like, comment, most importantly, subscribe, and I'll see y'all on the next one.
Pushing my pants yet?